What if Prince Oberyn killed the mountain? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. 2,000 likes is the magic number for a part 2. All around Oberyn, the crowd gasps and jumps to their feet. Some of them cheer, others boo and hiss. But he doesn't pay attention to any of them. Instead, his attention is on the mountain as he thrashes in agony. Yet, as he screams and howls, he still has not confessed. Each second he doesn't say it is another second closer to death. Desperation and anger mingle with the Red Viper, but he does not allow himself to get carried away. The cornered animal is often the most dangerous, and he cannot afford to get careless. Instead, he picks up his spear and rushes forward, jabbing it into the unarmored armpit of the mountain, feeling it sever the nerves there. Suddenly, his arm stops thrashing, and he does the same with the other, leaving the spear stuck in his body as he does. Only then does he climb on top of him and begin beating him.
Say it! Say it!
He raises his fist and strikes him again, but suddenly the mountain roars in pain and chokes it out.
I did it. I raped her. I murdered her. And I murdered her children. Good.
The Red Viper pulls out a dagger and with a single stroke slits his throat. There is a faint bubbling sound from the mountain, but aside from that, the crowd has gone silent. Everyone now knows what happened, and more importantly, this brings the matter to a close. Tyrion Lannister is innocent of kingslaying. Oberyn walks over to Ilaria Sand, and the two share a tender embrace, and a kiss that is only broken by Tyrion stuttering his thanks and embracing the Viper's leg.
Thank you, Lord Oberyn. I do not know what I would have done without you. Probably split his leg with an axe.
The two look at each other and then share a laugh, but then Oberyn leans closer and whispers to Tyrion's ear.
My vengeance is far from complete. I only have the cat's paw, but the cat still lives, for now. I will return to Dorne soon. I suggest you join me.
The pair glance over to the royal pavilion, where Cersei is glaring daggers at them. But it isn't her who they are looking at. Instead, it's Tywin's whose face appears unreadable, but his eyes never leave them. However, there is something else in it. Tyrion notices something he hasn't seen before. His face seems paler than usual, and his eyes more glassy. Then he recalls the oily substance on the Red Viper's spear. He opens his mouth to ask, but the Dornish prince smirks.
You do not hunt much, do you? To kill a lion, you don't sever a paw. You strike at its stomach.
Tyrion nods, and the two make preparations to depart. Even though he's deemed innocent, Tyrion has no illusions about his position. It is only a matter of time before Cersei cooks up another plan to get rid of him. The difference is that his father now decides it is more trouble than he's worth. He spends some time gathering some important documents from his master of coin, and by tomorrow morning, he departs along with the Dornishmen. By the week's end, Tywin is dead, having died from a stomach disease, but in reality, it was a form of special poison concocted by the Red Viper. Still, rumors abound as Cersei immediately blames Tyrion for their father's death, claiming that if he did not poison him, then he must have killed him from shame. She orders him to be killed on sight, and for a reward to be given to whoever brings her his head. No one finds him, though Tyrion is not entirely at ease. He realizes how vulnerable he is and begins working to gather allies. Though Oberyn promises him protection, he does not like being entirely beholden to the Martells. Instead, he searches for his protectors. As they enter the Kingswood, Tyrion hires several foresters who know the lands well and asks them to spend a few days there. Although confused, the Red Viper agrees, and soon Tyrion sets off with his foresters. They gather some gifts and wealth that the Dornish are willing to part with, as they can camp in an isolated path where the foresters warn them of outlaws. Tyrion smiles and says that is exactly who he hopes they'll run into. He tells his men to feast, drink, and be merry as he drifts off to sleep. But hours later, Podrick wakes up his lord with a sharp jerk.
My lord, they're here. When you reach the afterlife, tell your gods it was Shagga, son of Dolph, who sent you there. Aha, Shagga. It's been a while. What, no threats to cut off my manhood and feed it to the goats? There wouldn't be much to feed with you, half-man. Well, I hope there won't be any manhood feeding tonight. Please, come sit with us. Enjoy our goat and wine."
The big clansman laughs and walks up to join them. Seeing this, nearly a dozen of his clansmen follow suit.
"Help yourself to the gold we have in our tents. My hosts were gracious enough to provide me with, especially once they heard the great Shagga was here." "And what does the half-man expect in exchange for these gifts?" "What you offered before, and what you are excellent at giving. Your axes and your powerful arms." "And why should I give that? The little man promised Shagga steel and gold. Now he has both. What else do you have to give?" "Wine and beautiful women. This half-man is about to head down to Dawn, where some of the finest wine and most beautiful women are found. I would have thought the great Shagga would like to accompany me."
He is accompanied by nearly 200 stone crows. In Sunspear, Tyrion is greeted as a guest of honor, as many Dornishmen know he will be a valuable ally against the Lannisters. They do not bother to hide him, as Tyrion is guilty of no crime and serves as an act of defiance against the Lannisters. However, they warn any Dornishman that he is under House Martell's protection. This is made even more apparent when he presents them with the ledgers containing the crown's debts. They see just how dire their position is, and how the Iron Throne seems poised for collapse. It would have been one thing if Tywin was alive, but that obstacle was now gone. Doran provides updates on what was happening in the capital. Ruling the Seven Kingdoms has fallen to Cersei Lannister, who dismissed Sir Kevan and already shows signs of misrule. Some among the Dornish want to strike right away, like Oberyn, who wishes to burn Old Town to the ground, or Nymeria, who wishes to assassinate Tommen. But they are overruled by Doran, who wishes to wait for the perfect opportunity. Tyrion is also reluctant to strike. He sees how bloodthirsty the Dornish are for Lannister's blood. He also begins to set some conditions. While he cares little for Cersei, he demands that Jaime and the children not be harmed. He will be made Lord of Castle Rock, and in exchange, he will control them. Some are angered by this impertinence, but Oberyn vouches for him, and Doran finds these terms acceptable. Rather than hitting the crown directly, Doran knows that they do not have the military might to face the Lannisters, weakened as they might be. Instead, he turns his attention to gathering allies. Doran sends his son out to meet with Daenerys and try to get her aid. Meanwhile, Tyrion and Oberyn tour the Free Cities. Using the information from Tyrion's ledger, they begin to visit the different debt holders of the Iron Throne. Among these are trading cartels from Tyrosh, moneylenders from Pentos, and the Iron Bank of Braavos to negotiate an alliance for them. Cersei proves to be their greatest ally, as she refuses to make any payments on their debts until the war is over. Seeing as they will get no money from the Queen, these debt holders now find themselves interested in what Tyrion has to offer. In exchange for their support, Tyrion will ensure all debts are paid off to them through the Lannister gold mines. The debt holders all agree to this and promise that when Tyrion calls upon them, they will provide support. Aside from that, Oberyn and the other Dornish leaders begin formulating plans to strike when the war breaks out. This war seems to be coming sooner than later, as Cersei deteriorates the crown's position, rearming the faith and alienating her allies. Meanwhile, sellswords begin to land in the Stormlands, capturing castles and territories from the Lannister allied forces. Despite these victories, their numbers are few, and they will need allies to make any real progress. Oberyn and his Sand Snakes wish to raise their troops and join them immediately. Doran is less certain until they see a ship arriving from Slaver's Bay, bearing Archibald Yornwood and Garrus Drinkwater. However, they do not come with Daenerys or even their prince. They bring only his bones, as that is all that remains of him after Drogon burned him to death. The pair say that Daenerys will not make for a worthy ally. Instead of taking their suggestion seriously, she spurned Quentyn and disappeared into the Dothraki Sea on Drogon's back. This forced them to fight off the Yunkish slavers and protect Meereen on their own. They advised against allying with her, saying that if she cannot even protect her own kingdom, what help can she be in Westeros? Doran is furious at his son's death, and instead opts to join with Jon Aegon VI. Oberyn rides out to negotiate with the commander of the Golden Company, Jon Connington, just as they lay siege to Storm's End. They agree to a marriage alliance in which Arianna will wed Aegon VI. securing an alliance between them. With this secure, the Dornish host in the Boneway breaks off into two groups. Half join the Sellsword army in Storm's End, while the other half begin raiding the Reach. With Randall Tarley and the other Marcher lords in the capital, the Reach seems ripe for the picking. Towns and ports across the southern Reach face the fast-moving Dornish raiders who pillage their wealth and hurry back across the border before Garland Tyrell can ride out to face them. In the Stormlands, a hastily assembled host by Mace Tyrell is beaten back and smashed, forcing them to retreat to the capital. Tyrion listens to all these developments closely, taking some comfort in the fact that Jaime is off in the Riverlands, capturing the last Stark holdouts. This means he is far away from this fighting. In the meantime, at least, Tyrion calls upon his favors in the Free Cities. As promised, they provide him with not just funds, but sellswords and ships under the expectation that these expenses, along with the rest of their debts, will be repaid. Oberyn has planned for this, and they make several raids into the Crownlands, frightening Cersei and Mace, prompting them to pull their men back to hold the capital. But this is what they expect, as instead, Tyrion orders his army to begin marching north. They had prepared for this war for years and planned their move carefully. Besides the Reach, which is already being attacked, there is only one region that has an army untouched by war with Cersei that they could potentially call upon: the Vale. Along with Lord Trebor Jordain and a few Dornish representatives, they take command of these sellswords. Tyrion leads an advanced force consisting of only Shagga and his mountain clansmen. This small band rides hard through the Vale, visiting its high mountain roads which are now ripe with bandits and raiders. Soon enough they run into such bands, but rather than attack, Shagga's hulking presence intimidates them into listening. Soon enough, Tyrion finds his camp overflowing as mountain clansmen gather all around him. Shagga, his axe resting on one shoulder, looms closest, while Timett, Chella, and Gunther hang back, watching. Tyrion knows he has their respect, but respect alone will not bring them fully to his side.
You've all tasted Lannister gold. You've all fought for me and seen the rewards. But what I offer now is not just gold. It's glory. Steel for your warriors. Lands for your clans. And vengeance for every insult the Lords of the Vale have ever thrown your way. What do you need from us, half-man? Everything. The lands of the Seven Kingdoms are ripe for plunder. I need you to strike where they are weakest. Burn their villages. Ambush their supply lines. You've given us steel. We'll use it.
And when the knights come to face us?
We will not face them. Not directly. We'll draw them out, bleed them, and make them chase shadows while the real blow falls elsewhere.
With Chella and Gunther adding their voices in agreement, the clansmen rally to Tyrion's plan. They arm themselves in the steel armor he has provided, casting aside their crude leathers and bone decorations. For the first time, the mountain clans look less like scattered raiders and more like an army. The raids begin swiftly. Tyrion's plan unfolds like clockwork, with small bands of mountain clansmen striking at isolated villages and undefended roads. Word spreads of their savagery, and soon the Vale musters its knights to respond. But the knights find no pitched battles, only trails of burnt-out villages and empty camps. The mountain clans disappear into the rocky terrain, ambushing stragglers and supply caravans. Every skirmish weakens the Vale's forces, fraying their patience and resolve. But Littlefinger knows he cannot afford to let these insults go unanswered, lest he look weaker than he already is, and sends out a large force to root them out. Meanwhile, Tyrion's sellsword army lands on the undefended coast, striking at the heart of the Vale's supply lines. With so many of their forces west, many towns and coast settlements are undefended, allowing Lord Trebor to push deep into the Vale. The Lords of the Vale are forced to split their forces. The pressure mounts on Littlefinger, who scrambles to organize a defense. Letters fly from the Eyrie, begging for aid, but the Reach is under attack, and Cersei cannot spare soldiers for a region that has remained neutral for so long. Tyrion uses the chaos to his advantage, sending secret messages to the Lords Declarant, who already chafe under Littlefinger's rule. His offer is simple. Deposing Littlefinger will end the raids. After that, they will allow the clansmen and sellswords to march through the Bloody Gate and into the Riverlands. The Valemen do not even need to fight with them. Simply let them pass, and they are free to remain out of the war. The Lords Declarant meet in secret and seize their opportunity. They pull back their armies into the Eyrie and demand Littlefinger's resignation, pressuring Nestor Royce to agree, citing his inability to ensure security in the Vale. Soon, their blockade starts to take effect, and even his allies are wary of supporting him in such tenuous times. Reluctantly, Littlefinger is forced to yield, as he and the Lords Declarant ascend the Eyrie to take Robert into custody. But when he arrives, he's surprised to find a familiar face waiting for him. Sansa Stark stands before him, her hair dyed dark, her face pale but composed. She wears the guise of Elena Stone, Littlefinger's bastard daughter, but there is no mistaking her. Tyrion halts, momentarily stunned.
Lady Stark, you've been here all along.
Surely you are mistaken, Lord Tyrion. This is Elena Stone, the bastard daughter of Littlefinger.
What woman would allow herself to carry a bastard with the likes of him?
My lord, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You've gotten better at lying. Good. It will keep you alive. But in this case, some honesty will do wonders. Yes, this is Sansa Stark, my lady wife, and daughter to Catelyn and Ned Stark.
And why was this information never revealed to us, Lord Baelish?
You must understand. Recent events have made her identity dangerous to reveal. Surely you can see that.
And better for more plots.
When Robert Arryn is brought before them, he confirms that this is indeed Sansa Stark, and how Littlefinger had indeed planned on marrying them. This news is enough to convince the Vale Lords. For someone so concerned about Sansa's safety, marrying her off in secret was a huge betrayal of trust, not to mention putting the Vale's security at risk, as it would have compromised their neutrality.
Indeed. Inform Lord Arryn that we may yet make a man fly today. That is, if Lady Stark agrees.
Very well.
The guards suddenly seize Littlefinger and haul him right onto the moon door. Robert cheers from his high seat as Lord Baelish screams and falls through, his screams sounding further and further away until he disappears into the mountainside. Tyrion barely suppresses a smile, remembering how close he was to being thrown out at the very same door. But as he regards Sansa, his expression softens.
My lady, I have one favor to ask. I request an annulment of our marriage. It was made under duress, and quite frankly, I doubt you would have found much joy in it. You are free to remain in the Vale.
Indeed. I doubt I would have done well.
Oh, on the contrary. I think you would have been better than most.
If it's possible, though, I would like to return to Winterfell. If you oppose the Queen, perhaps you can get me home.
Indeed. Once this war is over, I will see what I can do. As for the rest of you, you have your freedom. Keep it, and stay out of the wars to come.
As Tyrion leaves the Eyrie, he cannot help but feel a flicker of hope. True to the Vale Lord's word, they convince other houses to withdraw their forces and let them pass unchallenged. However, Tyrion feels a flicker of uncertainty as his forces cross the Bloody Gate. The Lannisters still control the Riverlands, and they are under the command of Jaime. He knows that his brother will fight tooth and nail for the territory. He finds himself praying that it will not come to that, and some agreement can be reached. By the time they reach the Riverlands, they receive news that complicates the situation. While Jaime is still there, most of the Lannister forces have returned to the Westerlands. In their place, King Stannis has emerged from the north on the backs of a host of Northmen. It seems he was able to overpower the Boltons, and now rides at the head of a northern army to reclaim his kingdom, though in truth, most of it now belongs to Aegon VI instead of Cersei. By now, Oberyn and Jon Connington have claimed Storm's End and most of the Stormlands, while King's Landing has fallen, with Cersei barely holding on and Kevin found mysteriously dead. The Reach, while still a potent military force, is now on the back foot as the Dornish begin their offensive in earnest. This leaves the Westerlands as the only major Lannister stronghold left. Even now in the Riverlands, soldiers have risen against House Frey, many declaring themselves loyal to Stannis. This leaves Jaime with only his small army near Raventree Hall. The only thing that prevents them from wiping him out is their hostages to the Rivermen. But for Stannis and his northern troops, nothing is holding them back, and they eagerly pursue him. That small force retreats across the northern coast, harried by all sides. When Tyrion sees this, he spurs his army into action to try and save them. The Dornish commanders bristle at Tyrion's insistence on pursuing Jaime's retreating force.
We swore to fight for the Prince of Dorne, not to risk our men and fortunes for a Lannister brother who may already be lost. We swore to fight with honor, my lord. That includes keeping our word. No harm shall come to Jaime. You all agreed to this.
The tension lingers for a moment, but when Timett and the Mountain clans signal their readiness, the rest of the army begins moving. Tyrion wastes no time, spurring them into action and leading the charge toward the coast. The retreating Lannister force, harried from all sides, has been driven into a narrow valley, surrounded by Stannis' advancing forces, commanded by Godfrey Ferring. Arrows rain down, and Jaime's men are visibly breaking. Tyrion signals the charge, leading his sellswords and mountain clans into the fray. This sudden assault catches Godfrey's forces off guard. The mountain clans, ferocious as ever, barrel into the attackers with wild abandon. But with mail and steel, they are even more dangerous and cut through the thinnest part of their lines. Jaime stands at the rear of his army, trying to rally his men and direct soldiers until he sees the arrival of Tyrion's army. Tyrion himself stands atop a low rise and gestures frantically for him to retreat. A small gap opens in Godfrey's lines, allowing Jaime and his remaining men to push through. It is hard fighting, and most of his troops fall, though about 200 manage to slip past, including Jaime. Tyrion's army doesn't waste its time fighting with Godfrey and instead retreats to a nearby town to regroup. The brothers find each other in the aftermath, panting and bloodied, but alive. Jaime dismounts and limps towards Tyrion.
I never thought I'd see you here. I thought you'd never set foot on another battlefield. I had good reason to this time. I've risked too much for that golden hand of yours.
The two share a heartfelt embrace.
Tyrion, I am truly grateful for this. I do not know what I would have done without you. You would have done the same for me. You know, in my trial of the Vale, I named you my champion. I knew you would have ridden day and night to save me. How could I not do the same? You know we're still on opposite sides of this war.
Tyrion opens his mouth, but decides now is not the time to question him. There will be time for that tomorrow. For now, he is simply grateful that his brother is safe. The next day, scouts soon arrive and report Stannis himself is arriving with his main force. At first, they think he plans on besieging them, but instead, they report that Stannis wishes to negotiate.
You are cornered, and this town is not prepared for a siege. Still, there is no need to draw this out. I will allow you to leave with your lives if your bannermen and sellswords join my cause. You have the upper hand now, your grace, but you overestimate your position. Aegon VI holds the capital, the Dornish, the Stormlands, and much of the Reach. The Vale has no love for you, and the Riverlands remain contested. If you insist on fighting, you'll bleed yourself dry for a crown you cannot keep. Aegon is a boy king propped up by his lies. Hardly the first king these past few years in a similar position. I've faced worse odds and won. I will not yield to a pretender. There are greater threats than you realize. Greater threats? What could possibly...
Jaime opens his mouth to laugh, but Tyrion raises a hand, silencing him. A memory probes into his mind. Alistair Thorne, who came to King's Landing once, carrying a rotted hand. He mocked him and called him mad.
You believe the claims of the Night's Watch? I do. You've not seen the happenings there as I have. The true war is in the north. If the realm is to survive, it must stand together under a strong king. If that's true, then another war between us weakens the realm further. The people who wronged you are dead. Renly, Tywin, Joffrey, and soon Cersei will join them. A new dynasty rules. What's the point of spilling more blood when the dead march on the living? Let me speak with him. Perhaps we can come to terms. You may even be able to keep Storm's End. What you say is true. But words are wind. Aegon must pledge himself to this fight, concretely. Until then, I have no reason to bend the knee. Convince him. Until then, we will hold our position. However, until then, your sellswords will remain under my custody. The Dornish and your wildlings can go serve as your escort.
The two nod in silent agreement, parting ways as a brisk wind sweeps through the now calm battlefield. 2,000 likes and we'll do a part 2. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the 7 kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.